Welcome to the Audacious OBM podcast. I'm your host, Leanne, creator of OBM Academy and founder of Audacious Empires. Each week, my crew and I will explore all things building and scaling an exceptional OBM business. This podcast is here to share how you can charge premium prices, have clients lining up to work with you, and never have to work another weekend again. You can have a thriving OBM business working with the clients you want, when you want, and charging the price you want. It's time to banish mediocre and become the standout, sought-after OBM you know you can be. Oh, hey there, fabulous human. Today, we're doing a session called OBM Behind the Scenes, How I Manage My Day. I'm going to tell you exactly how I manage my schedule. And you should walk away with pretty good visual in your mind. And maybe it'll give you a whole new way to look at how to manage your day, or maybe you'll learn some tips and tricks, but you should walk away with something. So let's dive in. My approach to managing my day is all about visibility. And I have a two-pronged visibility approach that I like to use. I like to look at the high-level view and the micro-level view. And combined, they are Captain Planet. If you want to be a great OBM, an online business manager who is all over it, this is a core foundation for you. You need to be able to manage your day and your time and have visibility. In OBM Academy, that's what I like to call it, OBMA, the question I get asked by my students a lot is, how do you manage multiple clients without getting burnt out? And the truth is, it's this two-pronged approach. This two-pronged approach seems simple, but in execution, it's a discipline. It's something that you have to build in so that it becomes a habit. And as OBMs, we tend to be highly capable. We are managers and coordinators. We're great with working with resources, and we're great with timeline tracking, and we're great with creating efficient, effective systems. But that can sometimes be a double-edged sword, because then what happens is that we are used to being reliable. We're used to being that capable, and we forget that the discipline is the action of making that possible. So we start to rely on our memory too much. And as we get more clients, or as we get more jobs in, we start to fall over. Because I hate to break it to you, but you're only human, and your little brain can only cope with so much. Doesn't matter how capable you are, eventually your memory will fail you. And it's devastating when it does. Then we put in place different tactics and different ways of working, which we can use to make sure that doesn't happen. And we can stay highly capable, highly effective, even when we have a large volume of things happening. I'm going to explain to you this two-pronged approach. The first piece is the high-level view, and to do that, I use time blocking. Now, years ago, I attended a workshop and I learned about time blocking, calendar blocking, diary blocking, and we had highlighters, and I remember color coding things in my paper planner and then having the ability to rub it out. And I was amazed. I loved every second of it. And since then, I've adapted that principle to work for me and to work in my OBM business. This approach works whether you currently do work on an hourly basis, whether you've got retainers, or whether you are project-based. So it's really versatile, which is fantastic. There is a critical point though. You need to be able to estimate and understand your capacity with accuracy. So what that means is that you need to understand clearly how long things take you, how much space you have available to you, what your deadlines are. Without that, this system won't work because it will be based on faulty data. And how time blocking works is you look at your calendar. Doesn't matter if it's a piece of paper or your Google Calendar online, whatever you want. And you start to you plan in blocks of time. Half an hour, 3-hour blocks. And you're planning what you're going to be able to do and achieve in those blocks, hence time blocking. You do this across your week. Now, if you've never done this before, or maybe you don't have that full understanding of your capacity, and you're thinking, I don't really know how long things take me, but I can guess, go with your guess. Because this approach will get better as you practice. It is the best way to get better at it. It's just to do it. Don't overthink it. And so you want to look at your week and you want to use colors to make it easier for your brain to quickly process what you've got going on. And we want to create a color code. And it might be that purple is all of your life activities. And it might be that blue is all of your kids' activities. Maybe you have to run around after children. It might mean that yellow is for breaks. And it might mean that a certain client is in orange and another client is in pink. However you want to work it, have a color code system that is at that level. Do not go into more detail. The idea is that it's quick and easy to see what's going on. Some people like to do it for things where it is light work versus deep work. And then they can block in when they believe they have more brain space so they can do the work that needs that more brain capacity in certain blocks when they know they've got that set aside. So however works for you is fine. The biggest thing is just to get started. Something else that you want to do is once you've put everything in, I want you to measure this against how much breathing room you've put. So when I first did this, I didn't look at how many clients I had. I didn't look at what work was actually in my schedule. I put all of that aside and I just mapped out what my ideal week would look like. And I put those blocks in. Here is client work. Here is my break. Here is when I do marketing activities. And I mapped it all out like that. And then I went back and went, okay, is there enough breathing room here? Because something that we inherently do and something that I did was we don't put in enough space. There isn't enough empty space. And then we get overwhelmed or we're constantly behind because we haven't left any room for anything unexpected. And if there is something that I know about life is that unexpected things happen all the time, especially when you don't plan for it. So we want to add some breathing room. And you want to add lunch. I always add more time for lunch. So in my calendar at the moment, I set aside an hour for lunch. Very rarely do I take an hour for lunch. Sometimes I take 20 minutes. Sometimes I take half an hour. Sometimes I take 45 minutes. Very rarely is it a full hour, but it's there if I need it. And do you know what? I went from someone who never had a break for lunch to now someone who always has time for lunch every day, whether I need 20 minutes or whether I need 40 minutes, because it's built in. And so I make that necessary. So you build all that out. And then what I went back and did was look at, okay, what clients do I have? What work do I need to do? And what blocks do they fit into? So you start to then make your template livable. What you might find is that you don't have enough room in your week for how much you had planned, and that's okay. It means that you need to make some decisions. You need to plan less. You might not come up with a solution for that straight away, and that's okay too. But you need to start thinking about how you can build in less and what that means and what decisions you need to make that achievable. Maybe it means that you've got to take on less client work but charge more money. Maybe it means you have to have Somebody go and pick your kids up from school. You take them there, someone else has to pick them up. Whatever it means. You have now some space to see, okay, this is how much time I have to find, and how can I creatively, slowly get some of that back, even if it is in 15-minute blocks. Whatever you can do, just make that pathway open. Get the possibilities happening and building in that breathing room. It doesn't have to happen overnight. This isn't we want to put you into a panic spiral. We just want you to understand what's going on and to be able to slowly work towards a way of planning that feels good. Now, once you've planned out your week, you have to, on a daily basis, live by the golden rule. And that is, you cannot delete anything unless that event or that piece of client work or whatever it might be has actually been cancelled, or you found someone else to do it. Everything that you don't do, and there will be things in your week that other things came up that day and you never got to that thing, even though you'd planned to, that you need to move. You have to move it. You cannot just delete it and go, I'll find a time for it later. Everything needs to be moved. And what that's doing is helping you plan better in the future, giving you a better understanding of how long things actually take you. And it's helping you shuffle your things across a longer timeline, because the second that you have to move something, you can prioritize it. You can go, I didn't have time for this today. Does that mean I have to do it tomorrow? Was it important that I did it? So it's high on my priority list. Maybe that means that something from tomorrow needs to shift. And maybe that means something from the next day has to shift. Until you've made up that time, you shift things along based on their priority and where they're at. And it means we don't go into this spiral of then waking up one morning and having a 16-hour day ahead of us because we didn't do that process. And we can't do it if we don't proactively do it. We can't do it from the other end. It's easier to do it in bite-sized pieces as things happen, which is why this is a discipline. Our biggest hurdle here is us. And again, it's a simple process, but if you've tried this before, or if this is the first time you're going to try it, I bet you anything, you will find some hesitation to do it. That's part one. Part two is the micro level view. And that is where I use Asana. So I love Asana. It's my project management tool of choice. I started using it years and years ago, and I like it. It does what I need it to do. I pay for a business account or whatever. It's probably one of the highest paid subscriptions I have because I like it and I like to fiddle with the new things. And so I'm okay with that. But whether you use Asana, Monday, ClickUp, Trello, the list goes on, there are so many, that's what gives you the micro level view. And this is where we put the details. So once I've got my calendar blocked out, I then go, right, in this block, I'm doing marketing. And I go into Asana, and in Asana will be a bunch of marketing tasks that I've planned for that same time slot. See how that works? So the micro detail of what it is that I need to do, the who, what, where, how, that is in Asana. It's where the scope lives. So then my calendar isn't clogged up with 150 tasks. It's blocked and it feels breathable. It feels doable and achievable. And then when I go and look at it in Asana, I can look at the task and go, okay, I've got to complete these 6 things in this 3-hour block. And I can start to work through them. And it has the same rule. If you don't complete all those things, you have to move the date. You have to find another place to do it. But it also means that we can keep a lot more detail without us getting lost in the purpose or feeling overwhelmed by things by just walking in each day or each week and seeing 150 tasks assigned to us, and we have no idea what order we're going to do them in or when we're going to do it or if that's even achievable. It helps us focus. So the two things combined work really well together. By doing this, it also cuts down on faffing time. If you know you've got a marketing block or you know you've got a client A block, and you sit down and you don't have those tasks mapped of what you're going to do, where your focus needs to be for those things, you're going to lose time trying to work out where you're up to and what it is. And you're going to lose time thinking, oh yeah, I've got 2 hours to do this. It'll be fine. And then you'll end up 3/4 of the way in and think, I've only done half of what I need to do. I'm not going to get it finished. And part of that will be lost time just trying to recalibrate. So having tasks broken down properly is what will help mitigate that. Plus, you get the super awesome feeling of being able to tick things off and watching the flying unicorn go across the screen if you use Asana. So for this system to work, you need to plan it in advance. You can't do this the second that you're going to start doing something, although you could start there if you've got nothing in place now. But the idea is to do it in advance and build it in the way that you operate in every day. So my planning tasks also live in my calendar, in Asana. So it's the same rule. I want to be able to plan in advance because I know that's what allows me to time block and to break my task down in Asana. So in my calendar, you'll find a block that's for it needs to be how you're working as well. And it goes with when I'm doing client work. If I know, okay, cool, I'm going to need a plan before I do this launch. I'm going to need a plan before I work out what systems this client needs. What approach are we taking? And when am I working out that approach so that I can build in the appropriate bits in my calendar and in Asana? So you see how it becomes like an ecosystem, and it works and it feels amazing. But be wary of the hesitation because I still struggle with it sometimes. I know this works and I still struggle with doing it. I get in my own way and I know that. And then I'm kicking myself later. So I hope that you found this useful. If you take one thing away, I would love to know what it is. So please send me a DM at Leanne Woff. Tell me what you learned. Tell me what your favorite tip was, big or little. I would love to hear from you. And if you found this episode valuable, please go and leave me a 5-star review on whatever player you are listening to right now, because that is how other people find these episodes. Thanks, guys. Have a great week. Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of the Audacious OBM. We hope this episode has helped you move forward in your journey to being a standout and sought after OBM. If you enjoyed the episode, take a second to rate and review. Each review helps us to help other OBMs just like you. If you're interested in learning more about OBM Academy and all that it offers, head over to audaciousempires.com to get all the juicy details. We'll be back next week.